Well, plans are wrapping up. I've got a flight to take in about 10 hours or so, but I managed to sneak in without a producer or anything like that into the studio tonight to grab a couple interviews. I'm joined right now by Drakos and Vedius. Talk about how amazing G2 is, which is, I believe, what you guys were saying right before the start of this interview, right?
Yeah, so what you missed was us saying that G2 clearly the greatest team after they almost lost to Latin America North, and not at all completely and totally hard carried by their top laner, who if he for some reason had fallen ill today, they probably would have gotten 3-0. That's just generally how we feel.
We weren't talking
We
about
didn't
that.
say
That's not what we were saying. We were saying perfect drafts, flawless execution, probably guaranteed at least top 4 at Worlds, at least.
Good, very good. I mean, is there any hope for them? Because that last game in particular, I was driving over here, and I was like, should I just turn around? Like, is it going to go to a game 5? Like, I don't understand what's happening. Is there any hope for G2 after that series?
I mean, yeah. The problem they have is that, this isn't the first time we've seen them have drafting issues, so I'm really concerned why they keep happening. And I mean, I'm going to speak to them and ask them, like, what was the intent behind the drafting game for, because I don't really understand. But fortunately, they were just better players, which is why they were able to pull this off. And coming into Worlds, they need to fix their drafts. They need to have more options. I don't know, like, they need to know what to do when Wonder can't play Urgot or Aatrox, and if they don't, then they will struggle. But if they go into Team Liquid's group, then Team Liquid will feel very happy. I can guarantee you that.
I mean, for me, it's like when Wonder goes against other world-class top laners, is he actually going to generate the same kind of advantages? That's my big concern. And the other thing is that every time we get excited about G2, a new problem emerges. First, they weren't playing well together, and now they're playing great as a team, but now their drafts are bad. And so I'm just wondering, like, if they fix their drafts, is another problem going to pop up from somewhere? But really, I think Vedius is right. They're like, if drafts are fixed, EU fans can hold on to some hope, but I'm less than optimistic, let's say.
Well, we did kind of jump the gun. I do want to thank you both for doing this interview. And by the way, this is all brought to you by U.GG. But I just had to immediately ask you guys about the G2 stuff because we were just coming off of it. Setting aside the G2 match just now, what are your guys' general thoughts on play-ins? Like, are we seeing good matches? Are we seeing scary matches? Or are the play-in teams just doomed? I mean, what's the takeaways as we start to wrap this up?
I think play-ins is a lot of fun this year. This is probably the most competitive play-ins we've seen in a while, which is really nice. The fact that we saw so many upsets is great, and you can criticize some of the major reasons if you want, but at the same time, I think it's really worth praising the impressive performances that we did get to see. Like, Infinity did find a really good fight against EDG. I do think that Detonation Focus Me really challenged Cloud9, and Supermassive just straight up outclassed G2 in Game 1. So I think there's a lot of positives to be said about the the play-in regions, and I think that they are well on their way to, every year they get better and better. So I think that it will happen. One of the major regions will get upset at some point. When? I don't know, but based on how things are going, it will eventually happen.
I'm happy with how much the regions are catching up. I agree with most of what Betty has said. I just think that's it's special. It's important to highlight Turkey especially as being just a continuous standout, getting better and better. Regionally close to EU, so they get, I think, pretty good scrim partners. And Latin American North continues to be impressive. When Rainbow Seven didn't show up, I thought that they were just going to be bad because White Lotus was the man putting everyone on his back last year, but they were super good. And I think if you are a fan of any of these emerging regions, of any of these smaller scenes, you can be pretty confident that when play-ins happens, they're going to be getting games every year now, I feel like, instead of it just being a one-off upset. Yeah.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask too. Is I feel like anytime the major regions or the traditional regions get upset or drop a game or whatever, all those fans lose their mind. They're like, "What? They're losing to the wild card teams?" And whether or not they've been rebranded, that's what people think of them as. Is the wild card teams, right? And so, should fans feel that bad when their team drops a game here or there? Or obviously they'll feel bad if they ever get the boot out of Worlds from that, but should they feel upset whenever this stuff is happening?
All right. So it's hard because as an EU caster, when I see G2 drop games to Latin American North, I think a lot of that stigma sticks around that this is a worse team, and by default, just based on where they're from, should be a worse team than you. And some of that I think will start to fade away as this happens more frequently. But it is really hard to shake the feeling of oh God, we're so bad. We're so bad. How do we keep messing up? And I know people in NA felt that way about Cloud9, even when Gambit was playing well, and even when Infinity was playing well today, and definitely deserves those wins. I think the first thing in a European's mind or European fan's mind is not, wow, Infinity was so good. It's, oh God, G2 are so bad. And it's kind of hard to change that mindset if you are from EU or NA and you're watching one of your teams lose.
Very similar thoughts from you?
I mean, I think it's always going to suck to lose, regardless of where you're from. But I think losing to a wildcard region, I mean, it depends on the region. Like, if G2 lost to Supermassive in a best of 5, I wouldn't feel too bad about that, right? Just because they look like a really clean team. And I think it does depend on, like, the relative strength of the region. And given that I believe Turkey actually has 3 teams, and I actually, coming into this tournament, didn't think Supermassive was even the strongest team from Turkey. They had RB, Royal Bandits, that I think would have been better than them and might have even performed better. So I think like it really depends on who you're going up against. I think if Cloud9 had lost a best of 5 to Japan, yeah, that would have been really bad. Just because of how small the region is and how they don't have a huge amount of international success. But like losing to Turkey, who've been to groups multiple times, like if Brazil had stepped up, I think it really depends on the region, the amount of experience that they have. But I mean, I think losing always sucks. So,
Well, I'd love to hear from both of you. There are a lot of North American fans out there who they don't feel represented at Worlds this year because their team didn't make it. Of course, this is the first year we've ever not had TSM at Worlds. And so, I mean, I hear, what the North American fans think of this, what the North American casters think about it, but of course it wouldn't be an interview without me being able to reference TSM and get those extra views. So, what do you, the guys from elsewhere, think about TSM?
Do you want like a really, we could get a really clickbait answer like,
No.
how dare you even think that TSM are worthy of an international stage? There you go. That's for you.
Thank you. That's good.
No, but I mean, it's the first year we haven't seen Zven and Mithy at Worlds too. We're sad too, But also, I think you look at TSM, and if you're a fan of the org, like I know it's really tough to watch right now, but you also have to understand that I would put your fandom of NA above your fandom for any one org. And TSM looked bad, right? And you don't, like, if imagine TSM for some reason got a free pass and they went into play-ins or they went into world stage and they just lost every game. Is that better? Like, to me, that's not better. I would rather see an NA team that is qualified and is looking good for Worlds show up and win games than see a team who, while, yes, they're a fan favorite, is horrendously underperforming right now.
Vedius, any thoughts on TSM?
So, I mean, I think I'm sad that Zven and Mithy aren't at Worlds. I'm sad that whole plan didn't work. Mainly because I have a really good relationship with Zven. He's been a huge part of like helping me get smarter. And he answers like, he's super friendly too. He'll answer like any League of Legends question, regardless of how dumb it is. Seriously. But the thing about TSM as well is that this roster has been together for an entire year, and they had an opportunity to go on points in the same way that 100 Thieves did, but they just weren't as consistent, and in the way our system works, consistency is rewarded. And the opportunities that they got given, they didn't capitalize on, and they have no one to blame but themselves. So while it does suck that TSM didn't go, they also didn't earn it. And while people can be upset about 100 Thieves not representing North America, I still think they're a good team, and I still think you have a lot of veteran talent on that roster. I don't know if people are worried about their AD carry specifically. I don't even know if Kodi-san or Rakara is playing yet. But like, they were going to draw a hard group regardless, and I think that whether you put Cloud9 in that, based on what we saw from Cloud9, right? Do the North American fans then suddenly have way more faith, right? Like, I agree with Drakos in that you should just be happy with who you sent. Like, you don't know what 100 Thieves is going to show up. They've had a lot of time to practice, and they may surprise. So I'm not upset about sending Vitality, right? Like, many people would say, no, we wanted Misfits to go to Worlds, or we wanted whoever it is, Schalke to go to Worlds, right? But I'm like, well, Vitality earned it. They were consistent. They deserved their spot, and now it's their opportunity to prove it. And they have a really hard group, but I'll still be rooting for them and hoping that they do well. So.
Same group as Cloud9. I do want to say, though, when I was telling North America Old, I hope I was mostly referring to Liquid, not a lot of. I just want to be clear. I do not have any faith in 100 Thieves, whichever AD carry they're playing. Like, good, God bless, good luck. Maybe Fnatic just falls apart, and that's how NA brings it home. But otherwise, not a lot of faith in 100 Thieves.
See that? Now I have to decide between the TSM headline or that headline. They're both so promising. We had speaking on the Zven and Mithy thing, we had Shox on Hotline League this week, and it's a show that I host. I'm sure you guys, you have Euphoria. I don't know what that show is. Mark is great. Thank you. Yes, yeah. He just shows up and sits there and then slowly falls asleep, and everyone loves it. But we had a caller who suggested that Zven and Mithy leaving Europe might have actually been good for Europe because it opened up a lot of opportunities for other players to come into the spotlight. It opened up like the competition a little bit more, and sort of different narratives spawned out of because of that and their absence. I'm just kind of curious if you guys have any takes on that or if there's any thought, because I actually thought it was quite provoking and insightful. I don't know.
Yeah, so for me, like, I think there's definitely an argument for it being a good thing, because I think when any one team dominates a region for an extended period of time, in this case G2, every other team, when they're looking to improve, looks at that team for how to play the game the right way, quote unquote. And I think when Zven and Mithy were there, it was always kind of the same, like, smart, pretty diligent macro style. And I think with their departure and kind of the top of the table being shook up, you see Fnatic playing a lot more aggressive and slowly learning to bring that back. Vitality, a team who's still super aggressive. And I don't see a world where G2 is 5-man strong, would have dropped enough games for teams to believe that was the right style and to take those risks against them. So I can't attribute it entirely to them leaving, but I do think by nature, when any kind of like big dynasty is broken up, it's always going to shift up how teams are playing and what teams are willing to try.
Cool. And how about you?
I think my issue with Zven and Mithy leaving is largely that they played the style that you talked about, and that they were often very controlled and intelligent. And I don't think we have that in Europe. Like, Schalke would be the closest thing that we have to that in Europe right now, but because Zven, Mithy, and G2 had spent so long kind of perfecting that style and they'd found so much success with it, it would have been nice to see how that holds up to Fnatic's new style and how they shifted and how the meta evolved and all that stuff. And so I think that while on the one hand it kind of opens opportunities to like newer teams, I think that at the same time our top teams we no longer have two established top teams that are like constantly battling for the top, because like so many new rosters came in this year and Fnatic was the least changed one. And so they kind of dominated both splits. They looked pretty convincing throughout playoffs. And for me, I think Europe is just lacking that second team that can really rival Fnatic. And that's what I think G2 always was. And that's kind of what makes me sad about their departure. And what makes me even sadder is they went over to North America and then they couldn't find the same success, right? And I hope that they bounce back. I imagine that they'll stay with TSM next year. And I think that they have so much potential as players, but they also just have a very clear idea of how the game should be played. And I think that until they get out of that mindset, they might be stuck in this. Because the people that they then play with, you would assume, learn how to play. Because I remember speaking with, I'm going off on lots of different tangents now. Sorry.
My arm is slowly.
Bring it back. You want to take turns?
Yes, I will answer the original question. Yes, I think it opened more opportunities. However, I do think it hurt the top of competition for Europe. That is the question answered. I have so many different thoughts.
To be fair, we just came off cast, and it's like your mind's going a million miles a minute trying to figure out what to say next. And so when you come into one of these interviews, it's really hard not to talk for like 30 minutes straight. Yeah.
I've now completely forgotten the point. That's the best thing. It's gone. Whatever I was going to say, you've lost it.
Well, I'm flying to Korea, so I have to leave. Actually, I do. I actually have a flight to catch. But I'm curious if there's anything that you guys want to say to any of the fans out there. EU fans concerned about G2 following that. General Western fans, anything like that.
Keep the faith. EU still greater than NA. Believe it. Fnatic will carry us home. So that's about it. Yeah. Shout out to Vitality and G2. I wish you both the best. You got difficult draws. G2 struggling. Other than that, shop.merch.riotgames.com for some hoodie. Everyone else has to shout out their sponsors. We don't really have a sponsor, but we have Riot Games, so get a sick Worlds hoodie.
Okay. Very good. Yeah. And?
As long as we get good League of Legends, I'm happy. I hope Europe do well. My faith is in Fnatic. I think they are the 5th best team at Worlds, and I expect them to upset. I think they'll come top of their group. So I'm looking forward to watching Fnatic play. And I reckon teams will get better. I think that playing stage is the best thing for Europe. So, G2 gonna smash. Easy peasy.
All right. There we go. Very good. Well, thank you guys so much for the interview. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to hearing your cast throughout the rest of Worlds. And for everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things esports right here on my YouTube channel. Well, I am leaving in a couple hours with Broden, but I realized that I did these interviews and then didn't film an outro at all, so now I'm just doing that from my office. I'm really excited about this trip, and I want to thank U.GG for sending me on it, because, yes, I got those interviews from the studio, but that's all I'd be doing if it wasn't for them helping to send me over to Korea. So we're going to be getting those to you
soon. Again, thanks you to GG, and be sure to check out the links in the description below so that you can support them. Maybe follow me on Twitch, do whatever. All that and more coming up soon with Worlds.